James chapter 1, verse 5, King James Version, quote, "If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given unto him," unquote. Or, put this into another way, if any of you lacks wisdom to guide him through a decision or circumstance, he is to ask our benevolent God, who gives to everyone generously and without rebuke or blame, and it will be given unto him. As you're studying your Bible, you're looking at the Greek on this verse. The entire verse goes into something that is happening to you now. This is something active. This is something for you to be involved in. The only time it changes is when it says it will be given. That means future is what it means. So God's going to give this to you. Is it going to happen in a second? Is it going to happen tomorrow? Is it going to happen when? You're not told that. You're just told by this that it's going to happen. Reading John Gill's commentary of the Bible on James chapter 1, verse 5, quote, "If any of you lacked wisdom," unquote. This shows that the perfection before spoken of is not to be understood as in this life, since the apostle immediately supposes lack of faith in them, for this is not said in a form of doubting whether they wanted it or not, but rather as supposing and taking it for granted that they did, and is the first and primary sense of the words. It intends wisdom to behave aright under temptation and afflictions. Now, as you're growing as a Christian, you're going to find out that the things that you hope and you desire to take place in your life, to make it smoother and easier, you look at things that are happening to you as being things that are done by others. But if you read the book of Job, you realize that it wasn't the Chaldeans, the Sabaeans, the winds, and all the things that took place was not because of them, but because God allowed them, because He is maturing you into the person that is more like Christ. So when you're seeking after wisdom, look to God and ask God for wisdom. Quote, "Let him ask of God wisdom," unquote, "for God the Father, who is the only wise God, who has abounded in creation, in providency, and above all in redemption and grace, in all wisdom and prudency, and of his Son Jesus Christ, who is the wisdom of God, and has all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge in him, and of the Spirit of God, who is the Spirit of wisdom and revelation, and the knowledge of Christ in all divine things," quote, "that giveth to all men liberally," unquote. God is the giver of all good things. In nature, providence, and grace, every good and perfect gift comes from Him, and therefore He, and He only, should be applied unto. And He gives to, quote, "all men," unquote, the bounties of His providency, and to all that ask and call upon Him in sincerity, the riches of His grace, even to Jews and Gentiles, high and low, rich and poor, greater or lesser sinners, all which He gives liberally, readily, and at once, freely and cheerfully, and largely and abundantly, not grudgingly, not sparingly, quote, "and upbraideth not," unquote, with former sins and transgressions, with former miscarriages and misconduct, or with former kindnesses, suggesting that He had given largely aright, and His favors had been despised or abused, or He has been treated with ingratitude and neglect, in which manner sometimes men put off these that apply unto them, but so does not God. Wherefore every word here used is encouraging. It's to encourage you to go to God for wisdom. Yea, it follows, quote, "and it shall be given him," unquote. God has said it. Christ has promised it, and the apostle might with certainty say it after all, and all experience confirms the truth. See Matthew 7, verse 7, the Beatitudes of Jesus, quote, "Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you," unquote. To listen to Discovering the Scriptures, the very next verse, it talks about how to ask in prayer the correct way, to get answers to your prayers. So if you're knocking your head against the wall because you asked and it didn't happen, examine yourself, examine your petitions, search the scriptures. You will find in the next verse some of your answers. And with that, may God bless you as you go through your day.